Hi, I'm Anna Denton-Jones of Refreshing Law Limited, and in today's session I want to talk about the extent to which an employer is going to be able to force an employee to have the COVID-19 vaccination when it gets to their turn to do so. At a governmental level, the public health legislation sets out that the public can't be forced into any kind of treatments, so that would include vaccination. We've also got criminal law protecting anyone from duress or if people's bodily integrity was interfered with in some way, then the criminal law would be protecting that kind of assault as well. There's the European Convention on Human Rights, Article 8, that we talk about often when we're talking about privacy rights. That legislation is quite broad in its concept of an individual's privacy and would extend to issues around things like bodily integrity as well. So were our government to try and legislate and say everyone has to have the vaccine, our judges would be required to then decide whether or not that new legislation was compatible with that European Convention and Article 8, and that's under our Human Rights Act that they're required to do that, and that is likely to lead to them finding that it wouldn't be. So for that reason, our government are not going to be going down the road of forcing anyone to have the vaccine. Besides, politically, that probably wouldn't land too well either. So that's the legislative background. So that means that an employer hasn't got a statute that it can look to say, oh, that's the law that allows us to force you to do this. So we'd be much more into the territory of whether or not it's a reasonable request for you to ask the person to be vaccinated or to show you that they have been. Now, that's going to depend on your health and safety risk assessments. That's going to depend obviously on what kind of organisation you are, what the employee's job is, who they're coming into contact with. I'm particularly thinking about health and social care settings where people may well be in contact with vulnerable individuals and the risks may well be higher. So a judge is going to have to be convinced of the reasonableness of that request and that that request has been made on the basis of evidence about how the vaccine is going to work to either protect the individual or other people. And I think at the moment, recording this on the 11th of December, we're early doors in terms of there being all of that evidence really to rely on. But let's assume that that evidence is available and that it is a reasonable request. The person who then refuses, ordinarily we'd be into disciplinary territory, potentially including up to dismissal if somebody is refusing. But there are a couple of roadblocks that we'd need to be aware of and take caution before we did take any disciplinary action. In particular, I'm thinking about the Equality Act here. One roadblock might be religious belief. So there are those who don't believe in medical intervention for religious reasons. There are also those who might object to the products used in the vaccination itself, particularly if pork products are involved, from a religious perspective. So any attempt to require somebody may well get you into direct discrimination type of territory. So we'd need to make sure we avoided that. The second roadblock, again, it's still Equality Act related, is the philosophical belief protected characteristic sits alongside religion. So vegans, we've already seen, are potentially protected in terms of their philosophical belief. The judges have said that's worthy of respect in a democratic society. That might mean that somebody again objects to the products that are used in a particular vaccine. But equally, we may have anti-vaxxers who run the argument that they should be protected by that philosophical belief, protected characteristic, and that their beliefs around not being vaccinated are worthy of respect in a democratic society. So they'd have to get over the hurdle of convincing the judges that that should happen. But potentially, again, there could be that roadblock. We'd have to think about constructive dismissal type of arguments as well. It's going to come down to the reasonableness of why we're asking somebody to do something and what their objections are. So you wouldn't automatically be disciplining somebody for failure. I think employers are going to, like so many things with COVID, need to work with staff and educate them about the positives of vaccination rather than use the stick. So it's carrot rather than stick approach. I hope that's useful. If you do need to get in touch, it's adenton, adenton, at refreshinglawltd.co.uk. Thank you very much.